Hello, everybody, and welcome back to our episode of Starcaster Curry Marks. Alongside Chris, my name is Ryan Chambers. We are the official Dallas Stars podcast, as always, of THPN. Go and use that promo code THPN the next time you're there using DraftKings Sportsbook. And maybe next time you can bet, like Talik Lizzie over here, whether we're going to start a little late or not, because I think I would take the bet on that. That'd be pretty good.
Pretty
If
safe
you were,
one.
yes, that's true too. If you are joining us for the first time, we'd appreciate it if you would click like and subscribe, and make sure you do so. We're at 800 subscribers. We really appreciate everyone that has done so over this course of the playoff run. We've been growing at exponential rates lately the last couple of weeks. We are really trying to hit 1,000 before the end of this playoff run, which we hope will accumulate with a silver trophy in the hands of Jamie Benn first off. But Chris, how are you doing, bud? How are we feeling? Has the second round kind of worn off a little bit, or what's the thought process right now?
I'm feeling good. Definitely on a high that we're not playing hockey today. I mean, can you imagine the stress levels we'd be going through right now? So very glad that's not happening. And I feel really good about the Star series. And I was excited about some of the stuff that I looked into earlier today, getting ready for this podcast. I think we got a couple of good little notes, little tidbits to bring to the people.
Talik Lizzie, that is like the perfect comment.
That is exactly what I would do. He said, I'm going to unsubscribe at 999 so I can be the 1,000th sub. What you really should do is you should wait for us to get to 1,000. Then you should unsubscribe so that we stay at 999. That would be even more funny.
That is the most sarcastic comment ever. I absolutely love it. Lizzie, you're amazing for that. Okay. I have got a lot to talk about here, Chris.
I've got a lot to talk about.
So we're gonna dive into a whole lot of stuff here this evening. But first, initial thoughts. Give me your gut reaction for when you heard that the Stars were going to be taking on the Oilers again, which I guess was after the win against the Jets in Game 6.
Yeah, I mean, glad for the chance at redemption. I remember last year, pretty much everyone, us included, thought that it was the Star series to lose. I still think that was the correct answer to that question initially, but the Stars lost it, so they did lose. But I think this series is really different. I think both teams somehow are better than they were last year, and one of those teams last year went to the Stanley Cup and was one game away. So it's pretty nuts. I think this is going to be an awesome series, and I'm really excited for it.
I'm glad you said that, because that was going to be one of the things that I discussed. I think all of the teams that we've faced or are going to face have gotten better. I mean, even the Jets have obviously gotten better. They won their first round series, and then they played the Stars pretty well to a certain extent. And then obviously the Colorado Avalanche were way better than they were last year. They were ridiculous in that first round series against Dallas, and Dallas has held serve at home and has been able to take care of business. So,
and we talked about last season how crazy the Stars Cup run was, like how nuts their like first round, second round, third round, their path to the Cup was. It's just as crazy this year. I mean, last year you had Vegas, who was only because of injury in the 8th seed. Then they got Mark Stone back and all the other guys they added at the end of the regular season to make them a true Cup contender in the 8th seed. And they knocked them off. This year, the Stars get the Colorado Avalanche, who are probably even more of a Cup favorite than Vegas was last year, I would say. And then the second round, you compare Colorado, who had Nate McKinnon and then buzzing after just destroying the Jets in that series. Everyone was terrified of the Avs at that point. And the Jets this year, who obviously President's Trophy winner, best goalie in the world, who still got 2 shutouts in the series and happened to be the only 2 wins. That's a crazy tough matchup. And then again, here we are facing the 2 best players in the NHL with an even deeper lineup, with an even deeper decor, and with maybe a better goalie. We'll see. I'm sure we'll talk about that.
And so we're going to get into our predictions here at the end of what we think is going to be the outcome of this series and how many games it's going to take. We'll discuss that at the very end of this episode. Y'all keep chat going. I'll make sure to try my best to keep up with what you guys are asking. And there's already a good question from Natalie, but I'm going to save it for when we get to a certain specific point in the episode here today. So let's recap really quick what we've seen from both teams. Dallas, obviously, we mentioned it really quick, was the 7-game series against Colorado. That was an extremely emotional series.
That was a war.
It was storybook ending how it ended, with Rantanen getting the hat trick against his former team that basically didn't want to pay him or couldn't pay him, however you want to look at it. And then the Stars dispatched the Jets in 6 after Scheifele's father unfortunately passed away. Still prayers out to him and his family. But let me ask you this one question about Jake in particular, Jake Ottinger. Is this the Jake that we've been waiting on since that 2022 series against the Calgary Flames? Is this the best version of him that we've seen?
The best since then, yes. In that Flame series, he was just otherworldly. I mean, that was just a once in a lifetime kind of performance. Maybe I think we'll still see that from him at some point. Maybe that's what it's going to take to get the Stars a cup. But he hasn't been that good yet. But he's been extremely solid. He has one start where he had an under 900 save percentage, and that's Game 4 against the Avs, where he got yanked and was still playing well and didn't even have a chance to really catch up to that 900 save percentage, which if he was left in, I think he probably would have. So Jake has been outstanding. He's arguably the best goalie still in the playoffs right now. Only reason it's arguably is because Freddie Anderson's been kind of playing out of his mind for Carolina. But he's been absolutely fantastic. He's been doing what the Stars need.
Yeah, and Bobrovsky, who won the cup. I mean,
he's playing better than Bobrovsky. Bob was questioned in that second round. Bob was questioned pretty heavily until he took care of business at the end.
Yes, and he did, but again, he makes the saves when it matters most, and that's what Jake Ottinger does best too. We're gonna get into that here with us too. But looking at the Edmonton Oilers and their recap from the first 2 rounds, they looked kind of scary there for a second in the first round. It looked like the LA Kings were finally, for the 4th time facing them, we're going to be able to get over the hump and defeat the Edmonton Oilers. And then the Edmonton Oilers were like, no. And then they switched to Calvin Pickard in net and then rattled off 4 straight wins. So basically a reverse swept the LA Kings. So that was their first round. And then in their second round, it was even more impressive. I mean, the Golden Knights are a way better team than the LA Kings, and they finished them off in 5. So they had a couple of extra days of rest over the Dallas Stars because of their second round series ending so quickly. And on top of that, there were a lot of questions about Stuart Skinner after those first 2 games. Well, in the last 2 games of the last series, he's posted back-to-back shutouts. Now, that being said, we'll jump into that, why that may be here in a little bit. But regardless, those shutouts are there, and that is a fact. So does Stuart Skinner particularly worry you heading into this series?
Well, first, overall, their path was easier.
Yes, that is fair to say.
That's absolutely true. The Kings pretty much blew it themselves. I mean, they had a 2-0 lead, then they had a terrible challenge in Game 3, and somehow managed to give all the momentum to Edmonton all at once, which is the one thing you can't do against the Edmonton Oilers. These guys can get on hot streaks, and they can also get on cold streaks. So you can't let them get hot. And the Stars have been good at that so far. I don't think they've let a team beat them twice so far at this playoffs. So that's a good sign. They got to keep doing that against Edmonton, because if you let them get 2, they're probably getting 4. And go ahead, sorry. Yeah, with Stuart Skinner, I mean, I don't believe it. I mean, both Skinner and Pickard are below an 890 save percentage, even with the 2 shutouts. 2 shutouts for Stuart Skinner, and he's still below an 890. I mean, the Oilers just dominated both of those games defensively, and I really think Vegas's offense was horrible. You see the struggles they had against the Wild, who at the time of round 1, I kind of gave the Wild the benefit of the doubt, and I said, hey, maybe they're better than they actually are. After seeing what the Oilers did to Vegas, I don't think the Wild are better than they actually were. I think they are who we thought they were, to quote. And I think Vegas is just worse than we thought, because they could not produce offensively against the Oilers at all. And I really don't think that decor is that strong, especially without Ekblad in the lineup.
I mean, Ekholm?
Ekholm, thank you.
Yes, Ekblad is in Florida, who is a very good defenseman too. But
too many X, bro.
Yeah, there's Eriksson Ek, Ekholm. There's Ekblad, or just X.
It's like that's part of a language or something.
Weird. X or X, however you want to look at it. Okay. Okay, so for me, I'll answer my own question. How do I say this the right way? It does worry me, but mostly because of the history between these two teams. Because Ottinger was outplayed by this guy literally last year. So let's jump into the series from last year just for a split second. And the Oilers won the series last year in Game 6. It's just a rematch of last year. Very different ways, I feel like. The Stars had a much harder time last year getting to the Western Conference Final than they did this year, in my opinion. They still had the harder path to where they are now. But I want to say it was a little easier this year than last year. They didn't have to go through 2 Stanley Cup champions, right? They had to go through.
Yeah, that's fair.
Like
just one,
right? Okay, so just one, yeah. And then the President's Trophy winners.
Right,
so,
that's it. Pretty easy.
But from what I can remember in the series, and I didn't go back and look at all the stats into huge depth, Chris, but what I got was Dallas dominated Game 6. They completely dominated it. They had all the shots, they had all the chances, but they couldn't score. And then on top of that, the Edmonton penalty kill was absolutely ridiculous. This was one stat I did look up. By the end of the playoffs, including the Stars series, they had a 93.6% rate on the penalty kill. That's absolutely ridiculous. So what I want to get into is what has changed for each of these teams. And I'll let you choose which team you want to start with first, Dallas or Edmonton.
If you want to start with penalty kill, the Edmonton penalty kill is not nearly that good. I think right now they're just over 60% on their PK. They're
66.7%.
Yeah, they're having to get Connor McDavid to kill penalties right now. That's how desperate they are. And he's amazing at it, obviously, because he's Connor McDavid and he can do whatever he wants when it comes to the game of hockey. But if he's having to kill penalties for you, you're down bad. And the Stars power play on the other side of that is humming, which it was not doing at all last year. Last year, we were relying on the 5-on-5 play. Even in those first 2 rounds, it was better than 0-for-14, which it was against Edmonton, but it wasn't nearly as good as it's going right now. So the Stars need to keep that up, and I think they've been doing a great job of exposing different systems and making sure that they're getting shots from high-danger scoring locations. They're finding ways to even get through the Jets, who are defensive masterclass all season long, PK masterclass all season long. They're still finding ways to get shots from the slot, from in tight, from right on top of the crease, which is really impressive. And I think they're going to be able to keep on doing it again. And that's credit to Steve Spott, which we didn't mention enough. I think how we gave him crap earlier in the season, which
I need to give him more praise,
but he deserves praise too now. Exactly. So you gave him crap earlier, give him praise now. So that's the big difference for me going into this series. And that was a huge turning point in the last series. I mean, so many power plays for the Stars, especially in key moments of those games in the last series, that, I mean, there's just no chance they couldn't capitalize on them at all. So that's a really big difference that both these teams are coming in with.
And then on the flip side is the Stars penalty kill has been, they've been very good, but what's even more important is that they've killed off the right penalties at the right time.
Yeah,
for example, against Colorado, there were 2 opportunities that Colorado had to finish games off in overtime on the power play, and they didn't. And then that, honestly, in Game 6 against the Jets, I was like, please do not Colorado this. Don't have a power play going into the overtime and not score on it. And I didn't have to worry about that. So that's, clutch gene for the Dallas Stars there. For me, what is very different about this team is they have way more experience now, just from some of their better players who got a lot of experience from last year. And I don't want to say they necessarily have better defense, the Stars, but they have a deeper defense. So if there is some issues with injuries moving forward, I'm not as worried like I might have been last year. Because,
right.
I mean, we remember Nils Lundkvist was only playing 3 to 5 minutes a night.
Yeah,
and then Petrovic got thrown in there.
we talked about that pretty much every game. If one of these 5 goes out, we're screwed, and they never got
Yes.
hurt. So that was pretty fortunate. But yeah, you're right. If we have the depth to get through it, and especially on the overtimes, you remember we lost 2 overtime games last year. You got to think, is that because our D was just exhausted because we were only playing 5 of them? It really could have been.
The other thing about this though too, Chris, is it's as simple as looking at the personnel, right? So when you look at the Stars, obviously what's different is Mikko Rantanen. I mean, the Stars finally have a superstar of their own to call their own. He's leading the playoffs right now with 9 goals, and he's also leading it in points with 19. He's got 2 more than Connor McDavid. And then the more other interesting thing that a lot of people have not been talking about is guess who's second in scoring on the Stars right now in terms of points?
Rupe? No, it's Harley now, actually.
Thomas Harley with a goal last night, and he's got 12. So there's a big difference there. But what is also different about this year for the Stars is they have Miro Heiskanen back. He looked ridiculously fantastic in Game 6. And on top of that, you can kind of look at the Miro injury in a really positive way now because one, he's back, but Harley, more importantly, has turned into a second number 1 defenseman. Neither one of these guys are number 2 anymore. They both can play 25 minutes a night and still look fantastic. And guess who the Oilers have 2 of? They have a 2-headed monster on their offensive side with Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl. But when you look at the Edmonton defense, is there really anybody there that can match up against Mikko Rantanen in that way?
It's probably Ekholm, as you were thinking, but he's going to be out at least in the beginning. I mean, some lunatics would argue Bouchard, but that's just insanity in my opinion. I think if you're comparing Bouchard to Harley, you're wrong.
It's not even close defensively, especially between him and the other 2 guys. Could Bouchard keep up with?
I've seen people saying Bouchard's a top 10 defenseman. I'm like, you're out of your mind.
Maybe I would agree with you, maybe offensively, but all around, it's not even close. He shouldn't even be in that category with guy. There's a reason why Bouchard did not get invited to Team Canada and Harley did. Now, maybe part of that was because Pete DeBoer was on the coaching staff, but
and that's what the Oilers
after Harley made it into the lineup, and it was like a Cinderella storyline for him. The Canadians did not want him to leave the lineup. They wanted him to stay in the lineup. And then when he played against the US, he was fantastic. So there was a reason why he got called up and not Bouchard. And so I think that in particular is huge for the Dallas Stars in terms of matchups, in terms of they've got 2 guys that can match up really well against either one of those guys. So if both of those guys are on separate lines, you can put one on one and one defenseman on one and one defenseman on the other. Or if they play together, you can put Harley and Miro together and allow them to go after it because Miro is used to playing on the right side a good chunk of the time in his career. So it's looking at that positively is a very good thing for the Dallas Stars. That's the biggest thing for me in terms of what's changed with both of these teams.
Right. One other thing that's changed is both teams' weaknesses have improved significantly. So when you looked at the weaknesses of the Stars last year, it's probably you're thinking superstar power. They didn't have that superstar. Well, check that box. We got the highest scoring player in the playoffs right now. So, bang, you've improved there pretty easily. And the exact same thing for Edmonton. You think about Edmonton's big problem. You don't have depth scoring. Edmonton arguably has the best depth scoring in the playoffs right now. And, yeah, we could talk about who they've played and everything. And we both said our piece that we think they had a pretty breezy way to the conference final. But it's still there. And for the Stars, it's not. Let me throw out some interesting stats for you for 5-on-5 at least. So, Sam Steele has 6 points, 5-on-5. Dodonov, 4 points. Even Oscar Beck has 2 points, 5-on-5. Beck hasn't been playing, let me remind you. He hasn't played in the last 3 games at least. So, yeah. And now let me show you some 5-on-5 stats for some other Stars players. Matt Duchene, 0. All playoffs. No points 5-on-5. Sagan, 3. Mush, 2. Ben, 1. Johnston, only 4. And Robo, it's fair to put him on the list now. He's played 6 games. He has 0 points, 5-on-5. He has 1 assist on the power play. That is really not good. That is a big red flag danger for the Stars. Their middle six has got to be better, and it's not just has to be better. Our middle six has to beat their middle six. It is way better on paper. That is the biggest advantage outside of goaltending that the Stars have on the Edmonton Oilers. And they can't let this Edmonton team continue to do what they're doing 5-on-5. Evander Kane has 7 points 5-on-5. Brown has 7 points 5-on-5. 40-year-old Corey Perry has 5 points 5-on-5. And Podkolzin has 6 points 5-on-5, beating everyone in the Stars' top 6. So, yeah, middle six has got to be better for the Dallas Stars. It has not been good.
And that's something that we talked about in our after game review against the Jets very briefly, where I was like, don't be surprised when, names on the list, if you just look at the names, the Stars obviously have the advantage when you look at the names.
Yep.
That's not the case when you look at the stats. And that's something that the Stars have to change. If it's either that or they're really going to have to lean into their penalty kill and their power play, which is fine if you can win games like that. But the Edmonton Oilers were ridiculous on the power play against you last season. And there's a lot of the same guys that are still there that still kill penalties for them.
When you saw what happened in game 6, hugely important game, obviously. 1 penalty or 1 power play, 2 penalties. One was they scored on the delayed.
Right.
So I have to think you're in the more important part of the playoffs now. Penalties are going to be a little bit harder to come by, especially when you got players like Mush who like to go down a little bit easier and who clearly don't have the eye of the referee anymore, as he's had some crazy plays against him and not gotten a call. So I don't think you're going to be able to rely on special teams to win you this series. You've got to get the goals 5-on-5. Pete talked about it in his press conference earlier today, how he thinks the key is 5-on-5. And that's got to be the focus for this team going into this series. It's that core of guys has got to score. The middle of the lineup has to score.
And we even need more from some of our top players not named Mikko Rantanen. I mean, really? Let's be honest. This team has been completely led by Harley, by Rantanen, and by Ottinger. And that's fantastic because that's who you need to be your top players. But at some point, your depth has to be able to come through for you. And this has to be the series where it comes through because, like you mentioned, Chris, all of those 5-on-5 stat numbers from Connor Brown, the guy 2 years ago was almost not even on an NHL roster. He signed in Edmonton, had a terrible regular season, and then he was absolutely ridiculous in the playoffs last year. And then he's having a great playoffs again this year. And you could say, oh, well, look at who they're playing with. Well, yeah, but look at who the Stars are playing with. You got Rope Hens with Granlund and Rantanen. That's fantastic.
Yeah, I think you're underselling Rope and Granlund a little bit there, but I still agree with your point, so I will let it continue.
Okay, and you kind of did a perfect segue into the next thing I wanted to do was just position by position breakdowns, and you kind of already talked about the biggest one I wanted to do, which was the middle 6 forwards. You mentioned 5-on-5 specifically. Let's mention the top 6 forwards. Who has the edge in this category and why in terms of top 6 forwards?
Well, top 6, it is so hard to bet against McDavid and Draisaitl. So I think the Oilers clearly have the advantage at the top of the lineup just because those 2 players alone can steal a series. And you go look back at the series last year.
Game 6.
McDavid took it over in the last 3 games of that series. It's pretty crazy what he did. So you can't let him do that again, or you at least got to get some more goal support. And that's where the Stars really fell so short. They couldn't get any goals out of anybody.
Well, and look at what Rantanen did for you in the Colorado series.
They could have used a Rantanen in that series last year for sure.
Yeah, and he did it this year. So in terms of bottom 6 forwards, I know this is a largely undervalued part and not really talked about part of a lot of teams, but who do you think has the edge in terms of the bottom 6 forwards right now?
Yeah, I know those stats we gave, and the stats say that the Oilers are better right now. I think a large part of that is due to the teams they faced the Stars still have the better bottom half of the lineup, especially when you look at what they're able to do with the special teams and the penalty kills specifically. Like, I mean, we don't have to have our best player killing penalties for us because we're literally unable to do anything. So I think the bottom six definitely is an advantage Stars, and it has to be. It has to be in this series. Like, I know the Oilers are scoring more. That can't be the case by the end of this series. The Stars' bottom six needs to outscore the Oilers' bottom six.
And that kind of goes into the whole middle six conversation too. So
Yeah,
really, it's
same
just
kind
like
of thing.
the depth
Yeah.
of the teams who has the advantage, I guess, is
Right.
probably what I should have said. Okay, the next two categories I think are very obvious for a couple of reasons. Goaltending. Who has the advantage in goaltending, Chris?
Yeah, Jake Ottinger clearly does, especially since Stu is going to be forced to start these at least first couple games with Pickard being day to day for injury. They're thinking
I
he's
don't
going to come
think
back later in the series, but
even if Calvin Pickard is healthy, I don't think you put him back in because I mean what they're doing right now is working for them. So I don't think that they would switch back to Calvin Pickard.
well, if Stu blows the first two games and Pickard's available
Yes.
for game 3, Pickard's going in. But yeah, I agree. Either way, no matter which goalie is in, both of them are below an 890. Jake Ottinger has been, I think he's pushing 920 right now. And he's just been fantastic, really timely with huge saves. You look back at especially Game 7 Avs when the Stars had the lead. There was still 5 minutes left in that game. I know that's hard to remember, but the Stars had to hold on to a lead for 5 minutes against Nathan McKinnon and Landeskog and Makar. And pretty much Jake Ottinger did it. So he's feeling himself this playoffs for sure. It's a different kind of guy.
And he wasn't even all that fantastic in Game 7. Jake Ottinger was like he let in a couple of goals that he probably would have wanted back. But again, when Rantanen got the Stars the lead, he shut it down and was ridiculous when he needed to be. Okay, in terms of the D-core, the defensemen, who do you have in having the edge in this one?
Yeah, this is where it's closer to even, I think. I think the Stars still have it, especially if Miro is able to do what he did last game against the Jets. I mean, that looked like Miro Heiskanen. I mean, that wasn't Miro Heiskanen coming back from injury. That wasn't Miro Heiskanen a little slowed down. I mean, he was skating all over the Jets. He was taking every inch of ice. I mean, he looked fantastic. So if Miro is able to play like that, even with Ekholm in the lineup, the Stars will have the advantage. Depending on when Ekholm gets back in, and if Miro is still kind of in the lineup or not, it's definitely a little bit more even.
I still think this is a category that the Stars, are way stronger in, like way stronger in, just because you've got two number one defensemen. And I know that they've got some decent guys over there with Bouchard and with Klingberg, and even Darnell Nurse has looked a lot better this postseason, but it's still not even close. And then when you take Ekholm out of the picture, and even if he comes in for, I think someone said in chat, was Game 5, that's what they're looking at for him having a possibility to return. He's still not going to be, the Matthias Ekholm that you would expect him to be. I mean, Miro wasn't the Miro we expected to be. And it took him 3 games before he finally started looking like a version of Miro Heiskanen that we remember. So I would give the Stars a huge advantage in that aspect in terms of defense.
Here's where I'm more worried about it is I think they're going to, at least in the beginning of the series, they're going to try and match either the top line with McDavid or whenever McDavid and Draisaitl are together, they're going to try to match that with Lindell Ceci to keep Harley and Heiskanen on the ice whenever they can create offense with the top line. I think that's going to be the goal. And I think the advanced analytics are going to kind of catch up with them whenever they're trying to defend against that quality of offense. And this is arguably, it's not technically not by the stats, but I think this is the best offense still in the playoffs. And I worry about their ability to get the puck out of the zone. I worry about how strong McDavid and Draisaitl can be on the forecheck with pressuring those two guys on the back end. I just really worry about how actually viable that pair is against the best players in the world.
So then do you split those two up if something happens and then try to split Miro and Harley up? And
I don't think they would do that. I mean, they've been so consistent with what they've done defensively for the most part. I mean, Lindell and Ceci have been pretty much inseparable for these first 2 rounds. So I would be shocked.
Well, I mean, so have Bischel and Petrovic, but I don't think anybody thinks that Petrovic is going to be in game 1.
No, and you saw what happened. Like, yes, Bischel Petrovic by the advanced analytics, when you look at expected goals for divided by expected goals against, they're the best pair. But everyone knows you have to read into that. You need to see who they're playing against.
Look at the ice time.
They're getting played very well.
Sheltered.
I mean, Elaine Nazardine is using them in the correct way to where they are excelling. So that's credit to him. But you can't say, well, this is your best pair. Let's throw Bischel Petrovic against McDavid and Draisaitl. It doesn't work like that. So
can you imagine? Oh man, poor Bischel.
I mean, I think some advanced analytic purists might tell you that.
Well, then they obviously don't watch hockey and include the eye test in on using these advanced analytics too in the proper way.
Right. That's why you got to have a little bit of both.
Right. And the other subcategories I want to talk about, and you kind of mentioned a little bit with special teams. That was going to be the stat I dropped more than anything, was the difference between last year and then this year. And I'll mention it again. The Stars are humming at over 30% on the power play. That was below 20% last year. The Edmonton Oilers penalty kill was not even humming. They were streaking at 93.6% by the end of the playoffs. And then this year, it's, for every 3 penalties they have, one of them ends up with a goal in the back of their net. So that is huge. And I think if there's anything that the Stars need to take advantage of, if the 5-on-5 play does not come the way that we expect it to, better here in this third round compared to the last 2, that's the chink in the armor that the Stars are really, really gonna have to utilize and find that little hole like Luke Skywalker did in episode 1. But or episode 4, excuse me. I hope they don't have to go down that road and have to rely on just the power play, but that is an extremely lopsided stat that has just flipped on its head 180 and compared from last year to this year. So if there's one specific category where the Stars can really make sure that they take over games, it's in special teams. And that's my personal opinion.
That's definitely a soft spot for the Oilers. Another one is the goaltending. So, I mean, we already mentioned it's at 880 for both of those guys. But, I mean, Hellebuck was having struggles on the road, and especially in that game 6. I mean, yeah, he shut you out the game before that, but he hadn't proved anything on the road up until that point. And the Stars barely broke 20 shots on a game that went into overtime. I mean, that cannot happen against Pickard and Skinner. And they got to get pucks on the net. They got to force these guys to make a save. You can't bail them out with trying to be too fine.
And that's the other thing that they were talking about a lot, even on the ESPN broadcast or ABC broadcast, whatever, was they kept missing the net. The Stars kept missing the net. And that's something, and I watched the last 3 games of the Edmonton series against the Golden Knights. And the one thing that was really impressive that they were doing is the reason why Stuart Skinner got both of those shutouts is the way they were playing in front of him. They were not allowing the puck to get even close to him. If the puck doesn't get close to your goalie, then he's not required to make a save, right? So they're doing the best defense is a good offense kind of trick. And the Stars have kind of been the opposite of that. They've been the counterpunch team, and they've been able to rely upon their defense a whole lot in the last couple of series, more so than the Oilers had. The Oilers have had to possess the puck more than the Stars have. And again, that's another aspect of the Stars game that, if we're playing, 3D chess or 4D chess here, like Sheldon, we've got to be able to control the puck more. We did not do that a lot. We did that in game 6 against the Jets, and especially in the first and the third period, which was fantastic. But we need to see more of that going in against the Edmonton Oilers. And if you can possess the puck and make Skinner make saves and make the Edmonton Oilers block shots and wear them down, then you have a lot better chance of winning games.
And that's part of what DeBoer mentioned. I think it was an interview between the first and the second series. He was saying, without Miro Heiskanen, we have to play a different kind of game. And it's got to be a little bit more defensive. It's got to be a little bit more of just flipping pucks out of our own zone. It can't be that same possession kind of game, is what he meant. Because Miro Heiskanen isn't able to facilitate that transition from D to offense, which he is so good at, and why he plays so much. It's not like, even when you see his offensive numbers drop, he's still a facilitator of the Stars offense because of how easily he gets our forwards up the ice. It's because of that passing in his own zone. So it'll be interesting to see if Miro is 100%. Can you lean back a little bit more into that puck possession game, a little bit more into the rush game, which the Stars are still doing good at right now. Don't get me wrong, but they can be even better. Well, they were top in the league during the regular season at rush offense. So that's definitely an area where they can improve as well.
Okay. The only other subcategory I wanted to talk about, it's a little interesting, but not as interesting as special teams and goaltending, but is the coaching aspect, right? So Chris Knoblauch is still the head coach of the Edmonton Oilers. Obviously, Pete DeBoer is still the head coach of the Dallas Stars. This is the second time they're facing against each other. I mean, who has the edge in coaching? Because for me, I would rather have experience in this certain scenario. And, that's kind of what Pete DeBoer has. He has a lot of experiences in conference finals, but unfortunately, it's been a lot on the losing side.
He has a lot of failing experience.
So, yes. So who has the advantage in this subcategory? Because it's interesting depending on how you look at it.
I'd like to say that DeBoer's coaching staff has the advantage here just because of all the adjustments that we saw in the first two series. I mean, you saw the power play was able to continue to work throughout both series. Despite adjustments being made by both teams, we were still able to counter adjust and match those and produce just as well. The PK being, essentially perfect through both times. I mean, they were trying different. You remember the Avalanche series? I think it was Game 5. They started getting to that higher bumper spot a little bit easier, and the Stars didn't really have an answer for it until like the third period when they were able to get out there and get on that a little bit quicker. So just small adjustments like that, I think the Stars have been really successful at. But on the other side, I mean, you can argue the Oilers did that as well. I mean, they're dropping back in these series, and then all of a sudden they blow off and get 4 of the next 5. So it's tough. I tend to think the Oilers is more so their offense catching on fire, which is what I think tends to them getting on hot streaks more in the regular season as well as cold streaks, because offenses, I feel like that's kind of like hitting in baseball. Like sometimes you either have it or you don't. There's no real reason for it. So
or like the Rangers hitting right now.
Well, no, that's not like the hitting like the Rangers.
The Rangers hitting
do not
so
have
bad
hitting
right now.
Yeah, it's just bad.
Yeah.
So
bad they fired their hitting coach like at the beginning of the
that'll
season.
do it.
Yeah.
Don't get me distracted.
Sorry.
Answer your own question.
Yes. To be honest with you, I give the edge to Chris Knoblauch and his staff. And it's because they were in the same situation last year and they beat the Stars at it. And I don't know if that is necessarily a coaching thing, or like you said, if it was just the superstars for the Edmonton Oilers took over the game and said, we're not losing this game 6. But I think they just get the extra little bit of intangibles just because of the head-to-head matchup between these two teams in this exact scenario, right? The Western Conference Final. The NHL had a top 10 storylines for the conference final, and this was talking about Pete DeBoer's ability to get over the hump in the conference final. And I just want to read this real quick. It'll be really fast. Pete DeBoer has been trying to get back to the Cup final and win it since losing with the New Jersey Devils back against the Kings in 2012. And the San Jose Sharks against the Penguins in 2016. This is his 6th appearance in the conference final, and this is his 3rd straight with Dallas. After losing with San Jose in 2019, Vegas in 2020 and 21, and Dallas the past 2 seasons. He is tied with Matt Keenan for 5th in the NHL history with 96 playoff wins, but still is looking for his first Cup championship. Getting past Edmonton would be a big step in that direction. Well, duh, on that last sentence. Like, come on. So it's just really interesting to see what that aspect will be moving forward. But before we get to predictions, there's one other thing I want to ask you about, and that's specifically X factors or like unsung heroes. So, who's one guy on Dallas, not named Mikko Rantanen or Thomas Harley or Jake Ottinger, who could steal the show for the Dallas Stars in this series? If there was one guy not named one of those three.
I think it's going to be Wyatt Johnston. We saw him score that huge goal, obviously, Game 7 against the Avs. Outside of that, I don't think we've really seen playoff Johnston. I mean, last playoffs, he led the Stars in scoring. He was absolutely phenomenal. It's a different player that we saw last year. And he's got a little tougher job right now because he's playing with some weird line mates. Hasn't really played with Rope Hintz other than when he filled the hole for Rope on the top line every once in a while. But it's just, I see why it's a little funky. He's got to find a way to produce either way, though. I mean, this is a future superstar that we're talking about on this team. You know, you've talked about a future captain. The time to step up is right now, and I think he's got a lot left to give for the Stars offensively.
For the Edmonton Oilers, I'll ask you the same question. You can't have Connor McDavid or Leon Draisaitl be that guy. Who's someone that's the X factor that could take over the series for the Edmonton Oilers?
I don't know, take over the series, but I mean, Corey Perry, he seems to not be able to do anything anymore at 40 years old, except score goals in the National Hockey League, which apparently gets you paid pretty well and lets you stay in the league for a little while longer. I mean, it's insane what this guy's doing. It's just like you don't see him on the ice at all. Then the Oilers score, you're confused. Who scored it? It was Corey Perry. So I don't know how, but that guy just has a knack for scoring goals. Still.
Yeah. For me, I'm going to agree with Mato over here. I think Evander Kane could be that guy
really good
for the Edmonton Oilers. And then for the Stars, it's got to be Matt Duchene for me. Like he has not had
for the regular season, and he's got 0 5-on-5 points.
And that's the biggest point. And since you said Wyatt Johnston, which is the obvious answer, he's the one that we have been able to rely upon in clutch situations the last 3 seasons. There's got to be somebody else on top of that needs to step up, and Matt Duchene needs to. I mean, this could be it for him. Like with the Mikko Rantanen deal, and we're not getting into it right now with the whole cap situation, but it makes it a little murky moving forward. So this could be the last run that he has at a Stanley Cup, and he learned a lot last season. He said it himself. He said he had felt things that he had never felt before, and he's 34 years old. He was 33 last year. So
he also
got to have. Go ahead.
He also said that he wasn't happy with the way he played last year, and
we're not happy with the way he's playing right now.
Through 2 series, he played better last year than he has so far this year, which is really not good. That is scary. So I really hope that he's able to figure things out, because I think the Stars are going to need him. And if we want to not just beat the Oilers with our secondary scoring and really blow them out and win the series with secondary scoring, Duchene's going to have to be the guy that takes advantage of that.
What about a guy like Jamie Benn or Evgeny Dodonov? Do you see one of those 2 guys maybe standing out for?
I think Dodonov can whenever Rantanen plays on his line, for sure. I mean, he looked fantastic anytime he's played with a Rantanen, but Ben, I don't think is really able to do that right now. I mean, there was a little. I just saw a clip of him on X where Wayne Gretzky was talking to him after that Game 6 win. And Ben was joking with him. He said, "I'm a checking guy now." And it really seemed like that was the best game he had all series, and he was playing like a checking guy. So unfortunately, I don't know what's really happened, but it seems like Ben's taken a step back considerably, especially this postseason in the offensive department. So I wouldn't really expect that from him.
Do you still expect to see him down on the 4th line, or do you think he moves up to the 3rd line with Wyatt Johnston?
I don't know. I hope the lines get all mixed up, because other than the top line, none of them were good last series. Well, no, that's not true. The 4th line was good.
Yes, I was about to say is that the 4th line looked pretty good for the Stars in several of those games. Okay. There wasn't a whole lot extra I wanted to talk about in terms of just like the matchup between these two teams. But I'll leave the floor for you. We've kind of gone through a whole lot of stuff. Is there just something specific other than that? Because you're really on the whole 5-on-5 scoring thing, which I do think is very, very important. I'm glad you brought that stat up. But is there anything else that you can think of that is key to this series?
Right. I think the 5-on-5 scoring is the area where the Stars can and should be improving the most between the first two series and this next upcoming series with the Oilers. All that being said, the Stars now have the superstar power to go up against McDavid and Draisaitl. So if the 5-on-5 depth scoring doesn't show up, the Stars can still win this series. And that's something you couldn't say last year. And that was proven last year. They didn't get any other scoring last year, and they lost in 6. So I think the 5-on-5 is most important, but it's still possible if it doesn't come, which is good. I'm very happy that the Stars have someone that can make that possible.
Okay, let's take a look specifically at game 1 and some of the specific things going into just game 1. And basically the biggest question going into game 1 is, are the Stars going to continue with the 11-7 or are they going to return to the traditional 12-6? We've talked about it the last 3 games. I especially thought after game 5 that they were going to return back to the 12-6 against the Jets. They didn't. It worked out for them just fine. I expect them to go back to the 12-6, but they didn't do it last time, and it worked for him in game 6. So I don't know. What do you think?
Today, DeBoer would not commit to that. He said 11-7 is still very much a possibility, and that it's up to if they think Miro's confident enough to be able to play big minutes, especially if your game goes deep into overtime. And I just think that's crazy. I mean, you look at what your offense did last series against the Jets, and yes, it's the Jets. They have good defense. They've got Hellebuck for sure. There's just no chemistry between any of those lines. And even when you look at what happened in game 6, Mikko is pulled off the top line several times because of how that rotation just worked out. You saw Mush on the top line every once in a while. You saw Robo on the top line a few times. So I just really didn't like how they rotated guys out there. I think it really affected how the offense was able to click, and that it didn't. There was just a lot of little tiny miscues that I think don't happen whenever you feel comfortable with your line mates. So I really hope they go back to the 12-6 and they get those double shifts with Mikko swapping out for Oscar Beck every once in a while.
The other thing I kind of thought about with this going into game 1 is, and this might be unpopular because of how great they've been, that top line, but I think it's really important, especially for Robertson, to try and get Robertson going. And you're already kind of, skirmishing against that idea. Do you take Granlund off, put him on the third line, and maybe even the second line, and put Robo up there with Rantanen and Hintz? Because I don't think it's Granlund who is doing a lot of the stuff with those two guys. A lot of it is Hintz and Rantanen. And Robo seems to play a whole heck of a lot better when he's playing with Hintz. And a lot of people play better when they're playing with Hintz. But those 3 guys together, I think that's really important to try and get Robertson going. And we talked about how, maybe Dodonov can be that guy, or maybe Wyatt Johnston needs to step up even more, which I think he does. But Robo was our leading goal scorer in the regular season. It would be really, really, really important, in my opinion, to try and get this guy going.
Granlund scored a hat trick on the top line just a few games ago.
It was 1 game, though.
Okay, but that was a pretty great game, and he's been really good on that line otherwise. That's just to say, no. It would take 2 full games, 2 games, a full 60 minutes with that line for me to say you might think about putting Robo back in. And even then, I would still probably say no. I know what you're saying by saying Granlund's not the catalyst of that line, and you're not wrong by saying he's not the catalyst, but he's a big part of it. Having 2 quick guys that are able to get up the ice, push back the defenders, especially on those rush chances, and allows Rantanen to move east to west off the rush, which is where he scores a lot of his goals. You go look back Game 7 Avs, his first goal. He's on the rush moving east to west because he's got 2 guys pushing the defenders back and giving him room. that's what he needs to do what he does. He needs to have guys with him who can create space. Granlund is much faster than Robo and is able to do that and create that space. And he's been very good along the walls as well. So I think you'd be crazy to break up the top line that's been dragging you through these playoffs offensively with how poor the middle six has been so far.
Okay, and that leads me to our very last little segment that we want to discuss here tonight, Chris. And perfect transition. Thank you, Teflon Breed. Is it just me, or does it seem like everyone picking the Oilers to win this series, like the Stars, have no shot?
Yeah.
And to be honest with you, I think that right now, that's not the case. I think a lot of people are picking the Stars over the Oilers right now. And if you go and look at NHL.com, every single one of their people that they highlighted, their senior executives and senior vice president of blah, blah, blah affairs of underwater basket weaving or whatever, picked the Stars to win this series. Every single one of them did. Not one of those NHL people picked the Oilers to win this series. So, I mean, first things first is, are you worried about that? that they're picking the Stars to win, because none of them did against the Avs, and we ended up beating the Avs. And then what's your own prediction for this series, Chris?
Well, the Stars are being wildly disrespected by all NHL media today, especially. I mean, obviously, we know what happened yesterday with the Maple Leafs and everything. Wow, I know we're all so shocked they lost again in dramatic fashion in the playoffs, and we got to talk about it for the next week and a half. I get it. But Spittin' Chicklets did an almost 3-hour episode today. They mentioned the Stars one time for less than 3 minutes. The Stars just took out the President's Trophy winners in 6 games. They took out the Vezina winner. They took out a potential Hart-winning goalie for the first time in like a decade. And we're barely talking about the Dallas Stars, who now have a superstar, have 2 of the best defensemen in the league. I mean, it's just ridiculous. It is ridiculous how little the Stars are talked about. And it's honestly a travesty. I mean, this team is so much fun. It is such a good hockey team. It's going to be a good hockey team for the next 5 years. And you can't find any time outside of how bad the Leafs are to talk about the Dallas Stars. It's really stupid. And it kind of pisses me off. I mean, I know we love Canada, but come on. The Dallas Stars are one of the best hockey teams in the league, and they have been for the past 3 years.
And not to mention the best goalie in the world. I think you could argue that right now, is that Jake Ottinger is probably the best goalie in the world right now, especially in terms of when games mean the most, who do you want in your net? And that's like how a lot of people have talked about Vasilevsky in the past, is like, even though Vasilevsky hasn't necessarily been the greatest goalie the last 3, 4, 5 seasons, if you had to pick one guy to have in net and you had to win the game, who would you want? A lot of people still pick Vasilevsky. They still pick him, despite there being so many great goaltenders in the league now, with UC Saros, with Connor Hellebuck, with Igor Shesterkin. I mean,
Otter's great, but the media has to pay attention. The fact that they're just refusing to talk about the Dallas Stars is ridiculous.
Well, it's also just, who mostly listens to their podcast. It's
I don't
probably
care.
Mostly
they need to do their job. They need to talk about the hockey teams that are important moving forward, about the hockey teams that are actually doing big things, instead of talking about the Leafs who are losing over and over and over again. I mean, I know they don't want to pay attention to the South, but like, that's your job. You're in hockey media. You have to pay attention to all the teams.
Natalie saying Oiler fans are just being super annoying on social media right now.
Oilers fans are trolls. We found that out last year.
Yeah. Not as bad as Minnesota Wild fans. I will die on that.
They are still trolls.
Nowhere near as bad as Minnesota Wild fans. Sorry. Minnesota Wild's up at the top. And then Ricky Spanish also saying, in Canada, all we hear about now is McDavid and the Oilers. And
right. Well, that's what I'm saying. All the hockey media is in Canada, and they all want to see a Canadian team win the cup finally. Like, and that's not your job. Your job is not to root for Canada if you're in hockey media. It's to talk about good hockey teams.
And then Zachary saying, our brother, Leafs being bad equals lots of clicks.
Yeah,
and
but to completely
Woozy Polar Bear. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Woozy Polar Bear saying, I live in Edmonton and the Oilers have very arrogant fans. Go Stars.
Yeah. And I get this. I get the Leafs get a lot of clicks when they're bad. So I get covering that. but to do a 3-hour episode on the most popular hockey podcast and to give 3 minutes to the team that just knocked off the President's Trophy winner is ridiculous.
Fair. There's absolutely some truth to that. But you didn't answer my last question. What's your prediction?
Prediction is I'm going to stay Stars in 7 again. I think both of these teams are so evenly matched. I think the Stars are going to get better at 5-on-5. I find it hard to believe that the power play is going to keep cooking at the level it is right now. And I think both of these teams are so good. So I think it's be Stars in 7.
I want to say Stars in 6, but I know that's not going to happen because I think the Stars are just that good at home right now. I think they've won 6 in a row.
They've only lost 1 game at home.
Yeah, they've only lost 1 game at home, and it's been ridiculous. And there is no way that this series is ending in 5, in my opinion. So I'm right there with you. I'm gonna say Stars in 7. And yes, I'm gonna be homerish, but I also think that this team. I really think this is it. I really think that. And I'll ask this question too, because this was a question I had earlier, but I didn't get to ask it. But is this just expected for the Stars to win this series? Like, is it if they lose this series, is it a complete loss, and is it a lost season, in your opinion?
Well, it's not expected for the Stars to win, but yes, it would still be a failure of a season. You can't keep losing the conference final. That's not the goal, obviously. Everybody knows that. You can't keep losing here. So it's going to start bringing in the questions is, what's the barricade that's keeping us from getting past this round? So losing here would not be good for the franchise. It's a lot better than what we thought was going to happen, which is losing in 4 games to the Avalanche. But still, it would not be the goal, and there would still be questions this offseason.
Let me ask for your quick opinion on the Canes-Panthers series. Who do you have, and for how many games?
I think it's the Panthers in 6, because the Canes system, I think, can only get them so far, and they've proven that kind of over and over, that their system kind of runs out of steam as they get deeper and deeper into playoffs. And I think just the clutch gene that the Panthers have, that Matthew Tkachuk has, is just kind of out of this world. And I think Bob is going to be able to help steal a couple for them too. So I think the clutch factor leans Florida's way, and that's why I give them the edge.
Florida was really impressive in game 7, excuse me. Like that was ridiculous how they just manhandled the Toronto Maple Leafs. And yes, I know it's the Toronto Maple Leafs and they are not good in game 7 and stuff like that, but it's just the way they went about their business was ridiculous too. They controlled game 7 like the Stars controlled game 6 against the Jets. It was extremely impressive to watch. I'm going to do a biggest loser for this episode, Chris, because I think it's hilarious. Nate G with the comment of the night. Katy Perry concert at AAC was postponed for the Dallas Stars. Take a seat, astronaut lady.
It's kind of ironic. She went to the Stars, but then she got booted by the Stars later in the year. That's kind of weird.
Absolutely love it. All right. Well, the conference finals get started tomorrow night. First with the Panthers and the Canes. That is starting tomorrow night. Stars get started on Wednesday against the Edmonton Oilers. Game 1 will be at regular times, finally, because there's only 4 teams remaining. So we get regular 7 to 7:30 start times for the Stars. Except I think there's one game that is weird. I think it's on Sunday.
Sunday, they decided to play a matinee conference final game. What a horrible decision. They did it so they could put it on ABC, and that just pisses me off.
And is that?
But I've already ranted once today, so I can't keep going.
Is that game 4 or is that game 5?
That's game 3.
I was wrong for both. Dang it. Okay, so I was saying, if the Stars just sweep the Oilers, and then we don't have to worry about it.
The Oilers were notoriously bad matinee games this year, though, and it's an Oilers home game, so hopefully that steals a little bit of their home ice advantage in game 3 away. But still, it makes me angry.
Absolutely would love to see the Stars win this series, obviously, but this feels like it's it here, Chris. they've been able to get through the playoffs without playing their best hockey. And I think that their best hockey is just around the corner. And Miro is starting to get hot again, and that's going to be great. And Ottinger is just being a complete foundation for this team right now. So
If the
anything else?
5-on-5 gets going, it's theirs to lose.
I think that is a huge key along with the special teams battle. So anything else?
No, that's it.
Okay, let's wrap it up. Thank you guys so much. For those of you who have been listening live, there's even more of you that are listening afterwards. Once again, if you're listening or watching on YouTube, please consider clicking like and subscribe. Hit that notification bell so you never miss an episode of Sarcastic Remarks. We go live after every single Dallas Stars game, and especially here in the playoffs, it's even more important that we talk about this team. And if you're listening on the audio side, please leave us a 5-star review wherever that may be, whether it's Spotify, Apple Podcast, anywhere. Follow us on social media at StarcasticR. Again, anywhere and everywhere. Not joking. Literally anywhere and everywhere. SarcasticRemarks.com is the website, and SarcasticRemarksShop.com is the merch store. If you'd like to be a partner of this podcast, you can join the Who Cares Club for $5 a month. Link is in the description below or on the audio notes on your favorite audio platform. Alongside Chris, my name is Ryan. We will catch you guys on the flip side, and hope you guys have a fantastic morning, afternoon, evening, whenever you guys are listening. Go Stars.